The audience was buzzing with a mix of anticipation and unease. The stage was set, the actors ready, and the air was thick with the smell of damp wood and the faint hint of incense. Everyone knew what was about to happen, but no one could predict the reaction it would draw. The play The Fall of the Angels had always been a controversial piece, but this time the stakes were higher. As the curtain lifted, the sight that greeted the audience was nothing short of shocking. On stage, Lucifer stood tall, his presence commanding and his eyes gleaming with a dangerous light. He was the epitome of a tyrant, a character so powerful that every subsequent villain on stage seemed to pale in comparison. But what no one expected was the way the audience responded. Instead of the usual whispers and gasps, there were cheers, jeers, and even a few people storming out in protest. The play, it seemed, had struck a nerve. What made The Fall of the Angels so impactful wasn't just the performance itself, but the way it managed to pull the audience into its world. According to John McGavin, a scholar of medieval drama, the decision to watch a play is more than just a passive choice. It's a decision to become part of the action, to engage with the narrative in a way that has real consequences. Some moments in the play might make you feel like you're getting a glimpse into something eternal, something divine. Other times, the play might stir up disruptive memories and behaviors that challenge the official script. One of the most famous examples of this was the Fergus pageant in the York cycle. The Fergus pageant was a part of the cycle that caused such a stir that it was eventually removed. The Masons, the guild responsible for the pageant, complained so much that the play was excised from the manuscript and forgotten. This shows just how powerful and disruptive audience reactions could be. The play's removal wasn't just about the content, it was about the way it made people act and react. But why did The Fall of the Angels and the Fergus pageant have such strong effects? Part of it had to do with the way they handled time. Drama, especially medieval drama, often played with different experiences of time. Sometimes the past and the present would blend together in ways that made the audience question what was real and what was just a performance. In The Fall of the Angels, Lucifer's fall from grace wasn't just a story from the past. It was a living, breathing moment that the audience could feel and react to. The play also introduced a model of villainy that would be copied and exaggerated for centuries to come. Lucifer's character was so compelling that it set a standard for all future stage villains. But it wasn't just the character. It was the way the play engaged with the audience's expectations and their understanding of time. The play made the audience think about the past, the present, and the future in ways that were both unsettling and thrilling. In the end, The Fall of the Angels wasn't just a play. It was a catalyst. It forced the audience to confront their own beliefs and reactions, to engage with the story in a way that went beyond passive observation. This is what made it so powerful and so memorable. It wasn't just a story. It was an experience that left a lasting impact on everyone who witnessed it. In the Cornish play Gearyns and Byes, The Creation of the World, Seth, the son of Adam and Eve, shows his audience 4 books. These books are crucial because Seth believes the world is about to be destroyed by either fire or flood. He wants to preserve the history of the world so that people will remember their past and continue to fear God. Seth says, "Let men fear to offend God the Father in any way in the world. To neutralize that danger, I have had everything written down from the beginning of this world, so that it be truly recorded about everything that has been done in it. Observe the books here amazingly big, you see them, and everything in all this world is written down in these, lest it should be forgotten." Seth builds 2 pillars, one made of brick and the other of marble, to protect these books from fire and water. He wants to make sure that the history of the world is not lost. These books contain a compilation of various stories and information, suggesting that Seth doesn't know which records will be most useful in the future, but he recognizes the importance of having a diverse archive. Seth's act of preserving the past is a way of ensuring that people remember their history and the lessons it holds. Unlike Noah, who seems to suggest that forgetting the past is a good thing for a new, cleansed world, Seth believes that remembering is essential. This act of preservation is similar to what the play itself does. The Gearyns and Byes includes extra biblical episodes that might not be expected in a play performed after the first wave of Protestant reform. These episodes, such as Lamech accidentally shooting Cain and Seth's, return to Eden to comfort the dying Adam, bring together multiple moments within Christian and Jewish theologies, and engage with Catholic devotional practices. The play survived in 4 manuscripts, and the 1611 edition was likely transcribed from an earlier script. This suggests that the play was considered important enough to be copied multiple times. The scribes and performers of the play saw themselves as part of a tradition that was threatened with extinction, much like Seth's books. They hoped that their work would be remembered and valued by future generations. The Girenes and Bais also resists the political and religious changes of the time. During the Protestant Reformation, narratives without scriptural basis were increasingly discredited. The play, by including these extra-biblical stories, challenges the official historical and theological narratives of the time. It defends the right of individuals to experience and interpret time in their own ways, not just through a single official narrative. Seth's desire to preserve the past and his assumption that his audience shares this fear of losing records suggest that the play interacts with its own times. The play, like Seth's library, draws together knowledge from times that were threatening to disappear. The scribes and performers of the Girenes and Bais saw their work as a way to preserve a form of drama that was still thriving in Cornwall, but was being legislated against in other parts of England. By articulating this desire through the character of Seth, the Girenes and Bais resists the supersessionary discourses of reform. It suggests that historical truths can only be truly understood if we listen to diverse voices and narratives. Seth's books record not just one story, but many, showing that the past is complex and multifaceted. This act of preservation is not just about saving history. It is also about ensuring that future generations can access and learn from it. The Girenes and Bais and Seth's library both serve as symbols of the importance of remembering and preserving the past, even in the face of change and uncertainty. In a world where time seems to move faster than ever, it can feel like we're all struggling to keep up. Imagine feeling like you're always a step behind, like the world has suddenly sped up and left you in the dust. This is a feeling many people can relate to, but for some, it's more than just a fleeting sensation, it's a way of life. Take Mac, for example. Mac is a character from a medieval play called The Second Shepherd's Play. He's a tricky, mischievous figure who often finds himself at odds with the world around him. Despite his clever schemes, Mac often ends up feeling out of place, like he's always trying to catch up to the expectations of others. This sense of being anachronistic or out of time isn't just a quirk of Mac's character. It's a feeling that resonates with many people today. In the play, Mac's struggles are both humorous and poignant. He tries to steal a lamb and pass it off as his own, but his plans go awry, and he ends up being tossed in a blanket by the shepherds as a punishment. This scene is funny, but it also highlights the tension between Mac's desire to fit in and his inability to do so. He's a character who feels like he's been left behind by the world, and his antics are a way of coping with that feeling. Now, imagine yourself in a similar situation. Maybe you've felt like you're always trying to meet deadlines that seem impossible, or you're constantly trying to keep up with the latest trends and technologies. It can be exhausting, and sometimes it feels like no matter how hard you try, you can never quite catch up. This feeling of being anachronistic is something that many of us experience, and it can be a source of both frustration and creativity. In the medieval world, people like Mac weren't the only ones struggling with the passage of time. The mothers of Bethlehem, for instance, faced a different kind of struggle. In the biblical story, King Herod ordered the slaughter of all male infants in Bethlehem to prevent the birth of the prophesied Messiah. The mothers of these infants were left to grieve and search for meaning in the midst of their loss. Their story is one of broken connections and shattered hopes, but it also speaks to the human desire to find meaning in the face of tragedy. The mothers of Bethlehem, like Mac, are searching for connections between things that seem broken. They are trying to make sense of a world that has turned against them, and their search is both a personal and a collective one. In their grief, they find a way to connect with each other, and with a larger narrative of hope and resilience. This is a powerful reminder that even in the most difficult times, we can find ways to connect and find meaning. The idea of being anachronistic or out of time is not new. It's a theme that has been explored by writers and thinkers for centuries. One of the most famous explorations of this idea is in the work of the medieval scholar and writer Chaucer. In his Canterbury Tales, Chaucer explores the lives of different characters who are all on a journey, both literal and metaphorical. Each character has their own story and their own way of experiencing time, and Chaucer uses these stories to explore the complexities of human experience. For example, in The Wife of Bath's tale, the wife of Bath is a character who is deeply aware of the passage of time. She has been married multiple times and has experienced both the joys and the sorrows of life. Her tale is a reflection on the nature of love and the ways in which time can both heal and wound. The wife of Bath is a character who has learned to navigate the challenges of time, and her story is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. In a similar vein, the medieval play, the York Corpus Christi play, explores the idea of time through a series of vignettes that tell the story of the Christian Bible. Each scene in the play is a snapshot of a moment in time, and the play as a whole is a reflection on the ways in which time can be both linear and cyclical. The play invites the audience to consider the connections between different moments in time, and to find meaning in the past, present, and future. The idea of being anachronistic is not just about feeling out of place in time. It's also about the ways in which we can find meaning and connection in a world that often seems fragmented and broken. Whether we're like Mac, struggling to fit in, or like the mothers of Bethlehem, searching for connections in the face of loss, we all have the capacity to find meaning in the world around us. In the end, the feeling of being out of time is a reminder that we are all part of a larger narrative, one that is constantly unfolding and evolving. It's a call to embrace the present, to learn from the past, and to look forward to the future with hope and resilience. Whether we're laughing at Mac's misadventures or mourning with the mothers of Bethlehem, we are all part of a shared human experience. In the world of medieval literature and drama, time and space are not just simple concepts. They're like a magical playground where stories come to life. Authors and scholars have explored how medieval people understood time, and how they used these ideas in their plays and literature. Let's dive into some of the fascinating ways they did this. Carolyn Dinshaw, in her book, How Soon Is Now, talks about how medieval people had different ways of thinking about time. For them, time wasn't just a linear sequence of events, but a mix of past, present, and future all intertwined. This idea of queer time means that time could be fluid and flexible, much like how we might remember a happy childhood memory even while living in the present. Another scholar, Ruth Evans, looks at how gender roles were portrayed in medieval plays. In the Townley v. Zorno, a play about Noah's wife, Evans shows how the character of Noah's wife is both powerful and vulnerable. She's not just a passive figure, but someone who has a strong voice and can challenge the status quo. This is important because it shows that medieval women weren't always silent or submissive, but could be active and influential in their stories. In The Medieval Theatre of Cruelty, Jodie Enders explores how violence and suffering were depicted in medieval plays. These plays often showed scenes of cruelty, like the crucifixion of Christ or the massacre of innocents, to create a strong emotional impact. The idea was to make the audience feel the pain and suffering of the characters, which could lead to a deeper spiritual experience. Elisabeth Dutton's work on secular medieval drama helps us understand how these plays were performed in towns and cities. These plays weren't just religious. They often dealt with everyday life, like the lives of shepherds or the challenges of marriage. By mixing the sacred and the secular, these plays created a rich tapestry of medieval life that resonated with a wide audience. Elizabeth Freeman, in her book Time Binds, looks at how queer time can be a way to challenge traditional ideas of history and identity. Queer time isn't just about the past or the future. It's about how we can live in the present in new and different ways. This idea is especially important for understanding how medieval people might have thought about love, relationships, and community in ways that were different from what we might expect. Catherine French's research on the material culture of childbirth in medieval London gives us a glimpse into the lives of medieval women. She talks about the tools and rituals used during childbirth, which were often surrounded by a mix of religious and practical elements. This shows how medieval women had to navigate a world that was both deeply spiritual and very practical. In The Romance of England, Geraldine Heng explores how medieval stories about England often included foreign characters, like Saracens and Jews. These stories weren't just about English heroes. They also showed how different cultures and religions interacted. This helps us understand how medieval people saw their world as a place of diversity and complexity. Pamela King's work on the York Mystery Cycle and the Worship of the City shows how these plays were not just entertainment, but also a way to celebrate the city's identity and traditions. The plays often reflected the religious and social life of the city, making them a vital part of the community. Finally, Rebecca Krug's study of natural feeling and unnatural mothers in medieval literature looks at how stories about mothers, like Herod's wife in the Nativity plays, were used to explore themes of love, duty, and sacrifice. These stories show how medieval people thought about the complex relationships between family, faith, and society. By exploring these different aspects of medieval literature and drama, we can gain a deeper understanding of how people in the Middle Ages thought about time, space, and their place in the world. These stories and plays are not just historical artifacts. They are living, breathing narratives that continue to inspire and challenge us today. As we close this journey through the world of medieval drama and its rich tapestry of performances, characters, and themes, it's important to reflect on the many layers of history and culture that we've explored. Each scholar and their work has contributed a piece to the puzzle, helping us understand not just the plays themselves, but the world in which they were created and performed. From the fascinating emergence of the Anno Domini dating system, which shaped how medieval people understood time, to the complex roles of women in medieval theater, we've seen how deeply these plays were woven into the fabric of society. The works of researchers like Gail McMurray Gibson and Katie Normington have shown us how women were both represented and participated in these performances, challenging the idea that medieval theater was solely a male domain. We've delved into the symbolic and typological meanings in plays like the Townley Cycle and the End Town plays, where characters and events were often used to teach moral and religious lessons. Scholars like Frank M. Napolitano and Thomas Rendahl have helped us understand how these plays used familiar biblical stories to connect with their audiences, often in powerful and emotionally resonant ways. The role of the audience is another crucial aspect that has been examined. Medieval theater was not just a passive experience. It was a dynamic interaction between performers and spectators. John McGavin and Greg Walker's work on spectatorship has highlighted how plays engaged with their audiences, sometimes even breaking the fourth wall to involve them directly in the action. We've also explored the darker aspects of medieval society, such as anti-Semitism, which is evident in some of the mystery plays. Scholars like James Shapiro and Miri Rubin have shed light on how these plays reflected and sometimes perpetuated the prejudices of their time, while also showing how some plays challenge these norms. The relationship between medieval drama and the broader cultural and religious landscape is another key theme. The works of Miri Rubin and Jaroslav Pelikan have shown how the figure of the Virgin Mary, for example, was central to medieval devotion, and how her portrayal in drama reflected the deep reverence and complex emotions people felt towards her. Finally, we've seen how medieval drama continues to resonate in our own time. Modern scholars and performers are still engaging with these plays, finding new meanings and interpretations that speak to contemporary audiences. The work of Claire Sponsler and Meg Twickross, for example, has shown how medieval drama can be a source of resistance and empowerment, challenging the status quo and offering alternative narratives. In the end, medieval drama is more than just a collection of old plays. It is a window into a world that, while different from our own, shares many of the same human concerns and struggles. Through the voices of these scholars, we've gained a deeper appreciation for the creativity, complexity, and enduring relevance of medieval theater. As we continue to explore and reinterpret these works, we keep the spirit of medieval drama alive, connecting the past with the present in a continuous and vibrant dialogue.